This is one of the most iconic weeds on the planet, the stinging nettle. As we all have learnt the hard way, it guards itself with millions of tiny, hollow glass needles designed to inject a cocktail of acid and histamine into anything that so much as brushes against it. Because of its remarkable defense system, we've been conditioned to view this as a nuisance, a plant that needs to be eradicated with heavy doses of poison. But what if I told you that this very plant possesses more iron than a steak and more protein than almost any other leafy green on the planet? Not only that, but hidden behind its menacing reputation is a perennial species that actively heals the soil, pulling minerals from the deep earth that other plants can't reach. For 3,000 years, the stinging nettle was a pharmacy, a luxury fabric, and a feast that saved civilizations when traditional grains ran out. This is the story of Urtica dioica, the common stinging nettle, a plant that once clothed the Vikings and fed the Roman legions. To understand the profound importance of the stinging nettle to human society, we have to look back to a time before the landscape was divided into crops and weeds. As you'll soon see, it's almost unbelievable how dependent early civilization was on this species. If you were to travel back to a Bronze Age burial mound in Denmark, roughly 2,800 years ago, you would find something that challenges our entire understanding of ancient technology. Archaeologists unearthed a burial shroud there that had survived nearly 3 millennia. It wasn't made of silk, and it wasn't made of wool. It was woven from nettle fibers, so fine and so durable that it rivaled the best linens of ancient Egypt. For the ancients, the nettle wasn't a weed. It wasn't something seen as a nuisance that needed to be destroyed. Quite the contrary, it was a sign of potency. In the damp, bone-chilling cold of the Scottish Highlands and the wet marshes of Britain, Roman soldiers, shivering in a climate they weren't built for, would actually rub the fresh nettle leaves on their legs. They called it urtication. The sting would trigger a massive rush of blood to the surface of the skin, acting as a natural thermogenic that kept their limbs from succumbing to frostbite. To them, the sting was the medicine. It was a biological wake-up call for the circulatory system. But it wasn't just soldiers who relied on it. In Norse mythology, the nettle was sacred to Thor, the god of thunder. They believed that hanging nettles in a doorway could ward off lightning and evil spirits. But in reality, they were likely protecting something much more tangible: their wealth. In medieval England and Ireland, patches of particularly tall, thick nettles were actually considered a form of inherited wealth. These patches were passed down through generations because they provided everything a community needed to survive: high-protein fodder for their cattle, durable fiber for their fishing nets and clothes, and a nutritional safety net for the hungry months of early spring. History books usually gloss over the importance of the common nettle to the survival of civilizations. For centuries, it was the textile of the poor and the warrior alike. Even during World War I, when the German military faced a catastrophic cotton shortage due to Allied blockades, they turned back to the ancient ways. They mobilized thousands of people to harvest millions of tons of wild nettles, turning them into rucksacks, uniforms, and hosiery for the front lines. And surprisingly, nettle fiber is actually stronger than cotton and more breathable than linen. But as we moved into the industrial era, the nettle had a problem. It couldn't be easily mechanized like cotton, and it didn't fit into the proprietary seed model of the 20th century. Because it grows everywhere for free, it was uncommodifiable, so the narrative shifted. We stopped calling it a resource and started calling it a nuisance. But modern science is now pulling back the curtain on why our ancestors were so obsessed with this plant, and the data is frankly staggering. While the world looks to kale and spinach as the gold standards of nutrition, researchers have found that Urtica dioica is a biological outlier. A standard grocery store green, such as lettuce, is mostly water and fiber, but the nettle is what is known as a dynamic accumulator. Its roots reach deep into the subsoil, mining for minerals that have been washed away from the surface by decades of industrial farming. Scientists have discovered that dried nettle contains up to 25% protein by weight, which is unheard of for a leafy green. It contains vitamin K, calcium, and magnesium in concentrations that make grocery store greens look like they are seriously lacking in nutrient value. But the real secret of nettle biology, the one that really threatens the supplement industry, is its silica content. In 2015, researchers found that the silica in nettles is so bioavailable that it can actually help strengthen human bone density and restore the elasticity of skin from the inside out. But this fact is not the most impossible part of its biology, which lies in how it treats the human body. We've all been taught that histamine is the enemy. It's what causes our seasonal allergies and itchy eyes. But the irony here is almost poetic. The nettle sting is loaded with histamine, yet when you consume the plant, it acts as a natural antihistamine. Landmark studies have shown that freeze-dried nettle can stabilize the body's mast cells, effectively shutting down the allergic response before it even starts. It's as if the plant is providing the poison and the cure in the same leaf, teaching the human immune system how to find balance. This is why, for centuries, the nettle was known as the ultimate spring tonic. After a long winter of eating salted meats and stored grains, people would emerge into the spring, feeling sluggish and thick-blooded. The first thing they would do is harvest the young nettle shoots. They believed it purified the blood, and modern science now suggests they were right. Nettle is a potent diuretic, meaning it helps the kidneys flush out metabolic waste, specifically uric acid. This is why it was the primary treatment for gout and kidney stones for over 500 years. Even Nicholas Culpeper, the famous 17th century rebel herbalist who fought against the medical establishment of his time, swore by the nettle. He prescribed them for almost every inflammatory condition known to man. He saw them as a way for the poor to have access to powerful medicine that the elite physicians couldn't control. And the power of the plant is not just in the leaves. The root of the nettle contains a different set of chemicals entirely, which are now being studied for their ability to support prostate health in men. While the leaves fight allergies and arthritis, the root works on the endocrine system. It's a full-spectrum pharmacy hidden in a single weed. So, you have to ask yourself, if this plant is such a miracle, why isn't it in every grocery store? Why are we told to kill it with chemicals? The answer lies in the cold logic of the crop and lawn care industry. The global horticulture complex relies on a system of weed and feed. They want to sell you a chemical to kill the weed and then sell you a synthetic fertilizer to feed your grass. But the nettle makes that entire business model obsolete. Nettle is a nitrophile. It is a biological bloodhound for fertile soil. It actually improves the earth it grows in by pulling up minerals and depositing them back into the topsoil. It requires no pesticides, because its needles are its own defense system. In a world of fragile, patent-protected seeds that require a constant infusion of chemicals, the nettle is an anomaly. You cannot patent a plant that has been growing wild since the Bronze Age. You cannot control a food source that can be harvested with a pair of gloves and a pair of scissors. The system prefers crops that are deficient, crops that require you to be a constant customer. The nettle, however, allows you to be food independent. As we face the mounting challenges of a collapsing climate and exhausted soils, the nettle is shifting from a historical curiosity into a climate-resilient crop that has proven time and time again that it's virtually unkillable. While industrial corn and soy wither under heat stress or drown in floods, the nettle stands true. It thrives in the neglected, damp corners of the world where nothing else will take root. It is an insurance policy written by nature itself. There's something beautifully circular about the fact that the solution to our modern nutritional deficiencies and our environmental crisis is a plant we've been trying to poison for 100 years. A plant that is everywhere, standing at the edge of the woods, in our gardens, on our drives, and in our parks. And for those of you willing to look for it, the nettle is one of the easiest plants to find. You don't even have to use your eyes. The plant will let you know it's there the moment you brush against it. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do you actually eat something that stings? And heat is the answer. The moment you drop a nettle leaf into boiling water or sauté it in a pan with a bit of butter and garlic, those glass needles dissolve instantly. What you're left with is a rich, earthy green that tastes like a sophisticated cross between spinach and cucumber. In the Scottish Highlands, they used nettle soup to survive the clearances. In modern high-end restaurants, chefs are now charging $40 a bowl for that same soup, calling it a foraged delicacy. You can dry the leaves for a tea that tastes like the very essence of a meadow, or you can blanch them and blend them into a pesto that has more protein than a chicken breast. It is a slow-release fuel for the human body, designed for stamina and longevity. By bringing the nettle back into our lives and onto our tables, we aren't just adding a new ingredient to the pantry, we're reconnecting with a lineage of resilience that goes back to the Vikings and beyond. we are bringing back a fiber for making clothes, a food that is nutrient-rich, and a medicine that has been used for thousands of years for all manner of ailments. So, the next time you get out the spray can to eradicate the nettles under your fence or on your drive, stop and think. Would it be better to harvest these plants? Or should you continue to buy your expensive weed killer every year in order to destroy something that has the potential to provide you with more opportunity than perhaps you realize? If this story helped you see the hidden treasures of the botanical world in a new light, then please subscribe to Wildline. Our journey into nature's lost pharmacy is really just getting started, and there are so many more secrets waiting to be unearthed.